the euro, was never born as one nation. It was born from many countries, cultures, and histories, but first unified us with the values of the Enlightenment: reason, human dignity, freedom, and the rule of law. They were the rope that bound many sticks into something impossible to break. Over time, we strengthened that rope through research, innovation, regulation, and the single market. Today, it can all change. Great powers know that if they can loosen the rope, the sticks become easy to break. That is why trust is attacked. That is why facts are made alternative. That is why trade is weaponized. Security is therefore not only about borders or weapons. Security is about building cohesion, strengthening competitiveness, protecting a healthy environment, and investing in resilience. This is how we strengthen the rope today. So to you who lead Europe, this is what we say: strengthen the rope.
So welcome everyone to the Salon Louis Pold here in Munich, just a short distance, as we all know, from the Munich Security Conference. Thanks for coming to this event. It's entitled Security in the Age of Climate Change and Disinformation. And we also hope that we will capture some attention, of course, from the broadcast of this show, which will be in the next day or two on the We Don't Have Time platform. We've got a wonderful lineup here of amazing people, and we also have you, the amazing audience. So I do hope to actually come to you for some questions, to our top-tier guests we have here. But we're going to talk about two, I think, interlinked and intertwined security risks that perhaps are not engaging delegates in 2026 at this conference as much as they should do. And these are namely climate change and the disinformation, misinformation landscape that is becoming almost overwhelming and threatening not only rational discussion, but perhaps democracy itself. So what I'd like to do is first introduce our guests here, and I will go now to Mary Robinson. I think everyone knows Mary Robinson. She is the former president of Ireland. She is an elder, and she is also a planetary guardian. And we talked about this before last year in London when I moderated, and you just said, "Stop, Nick. Those are too many titles." So I will stop there, Mary. But Mary, if you don't mind, do you feel that the world is at the moment taking its eyeballs and its brains off this risk of climate security, which used to be quite a big issue for the military all around Europe, the USA, Australia? What's going on?
I think it is really important to talk about the climate and nature crisis as being one that should be in the forefront of any discussion on security. But I actually like the link that we're making with the other attack, which is an attack on truth, the misrepresentation, the flooding of the social media with lies, not to have those lies believed, but to have us feel there is no truth. What is the truth? And then the role of AI in being able to totally falsify photographs, denude young girls in an oppressive way, and all we're reading about. What is truth? So we have to protect what I've learned to call our cognitive security. Our cognitive security and our climate security are the two that we're really talking about at this meeting. Mm-hmm. And interestingly enough, because I'm a former High Commissioner for Human Rights, you didn't mention that title, thank you. But I want to actually bring back into the forefront the second last article, Article 29, the first paragraph. You probably, unless you're very immersed in human rights, won't have heard this before, even though you look very informed, very alert, very young to me, you know, very smart. Let's see, because I know it by heart. Everyone has duties to the community, in which alone the free and full expression of their personality is possible. How many of you have heard that before? 1, 2. Thank you, Kirsten. So we in the human rights community have been neglectful because we have allowed human rights to become very individual, and believe me, individual human rights, rights of women, rights of the child, LGBTI rights, all of those are very, very important, but they're not the whole story. There's also duties to the community. If you don't know that you have duties to the community, you yourself don't reach your full potential. Isn't that interesting? And don't you think, now be with me on this, when you give to the other, when you are involved, I'd say a lot of you are involved with the community, don't you feel you get more back? I see heads nodding. You do get more back by being with the other. It's Ubuntu in Southern Africa. I am because you are, the relationship with the other. It's Muturao for those of us who are in Belém, the Brazilian. It's Mehel in Ireland, my country. That's the safe space now. That's the truth. The truth is our relationship with each other and the communities and how. If we work it this way, we can enlarge. So it's the immediate community, family, neighbours, workplace. But wider than that, links, social media links, all kinds of professional links, climate links, all of these are community. And then we have the global community. So I think we're in a position where we actually need to fight for the truth and also to highlight that it is in our relationship with each other that we have to go forward and combat and bring to the fore the climate and nature crisis. Sorry, that was a bit long. But
yes, but Mary, just briefly, I mean, there was a paper that came out just before the Munich Security Conference from Professor Johan Rockström of the Potsdam Institute on Climate Impacts, the very famous scientist that deals with planetary boundaries, and also the Icelandic environment minister, warning of the failure of this transfer of heat from the Arctic down south and back again. I used to know it as the North Atlantic Oscillation, but there's a new word for it now, which is called AMOC. And people have theorized about this failing for a long time, but the new science seems to show that its risk of at least slowing down, but also of collapse, is now becoming far more real than anybody ever dreamt of. And the consequences for the feeding of people in Northern Europe, the consequences stretch far and wide. And this is, if you were in an army, you would say, this is a very risky thing, we must fight it, right? What do you think? I mean, this is not being paid attention to by the people in this conference.
The AMOC is extraordinarily important to Ireland because it comes just along the Atlantic coast and it's responsible for our benign weather. Yes, we have too much rain and people complain about it, but my goodness, we're quite lucky that we have this benign AMOC. And the fact that it is in danger, as the coral reefs are, as the Amazon is becoming. I mean, we are in this critical security phase where the climate and nature crisis should be the predominant concern because it's a concern about the future of all of us. Yet it is peripheral to this Munich Security Conference. There are some panels within the circle, but they're not mainstream.
Yes.
It's wars and, you know,
it's geopolitics and nuclear power,
wars.
Mary, thank you very much indeed. Let's now go to President Santos, the former president of Colombia, Juan Manuel Santos. He's also a Nobel Peace Prize winner and a climate action advocate as well, chair of the elders, I think, right now, and you're also a planetary guardian. So maybe a similar question to you, President Santos. You know, where do you see leadership in this world coming from on this issue of climate change and security?
Well, thank you very much for the invitation and for this opportunity. Well, unfortunately, I don't see very much leadership right now on trying to put the existential threat that we have, climate change, in the top of our priorities. Unfortunately, people are distracted and leaders are distracted with other issues. And so climate change has, in a way, lost importance in the world opinion and in the political will to fight it. And this is something that we have to try to reverse, because we see every single day climate warming advancing, and the consequences of this phenomenon is making more and more people suffer, being victims. Now, we are in a Munich Security Conference. Climate change has a lot to do with security, because what we're seeing is that the consequences of climate change are generating conflicts around the world. The displacement, the people avoiding the hardships of climate change are generating conflicts around the world. So this, from the security point of view, has to be also addressed, and addressed with much more leadership that not only takes into account the scientific world, but also takes into account the consequences of individuals and governments. There's an idea which I would love to see implemented of governments as, for example, and I had in my government, a chief financial officer who, in a way, told me and the government the fiscal consequences of every decision. We should have a chief scientific officer which will tell the governments the consequences on climate of each decision that governments take. Something audacious and bold like that is what is needed, because what we're seeing right now are even deniers who are attacking any initiative that is trying to address climate change. You see it in the U.S. administration. Every single institution that has climate change in its objectives is being abolished.
Exactly.
And this is suicidal, and I think this is something that we have to address. Going back to the Munich Security Conference, I want to share with you very briefly an anecdote. When I became president, the day I became president, I took a plane and went up 3,000 feet, 3,000 meters above sea level, to the oldest indigenous communities in the whole of the Western Hemisphere that live in something called Santa Marta, the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta. I went as a gesture to them, as the indigenous communities, to ask for their permission to go to Congress, back to the capital city, and be sworn in. The governors of this indigenous community, called the Kogis, got together and they said, listen, we will give you permission to. I had already won the elections. I was going to just be sworn in. We'll give you permission, but we'll give you a mandate. I know that you want to make peace, because we were at war with the oldest and strongest guerrilla movement also in the Western Hemisphere. You want to make peace, but you also have to make peace with nature. If you don't make peace with nature, no matter what peace you do among humans, that would be irrelevant. And that stuck with me. And 10 years later, or 15 years later, I see that warning is more and more relevant. And we have to take into account the war against climate change as a priority, as trying to find peace around the world?
I'm going to just ask you a very quick question and a very quick answer, if possible, President Santos. You mentioned Santa Marta. And one thing that is a glimmer of perhaps hope, I know Greta Thunberg said she doesn't believe in hope, but some of us do. Is it a possibility, with nations meeting in Santa Marta in April, which was inspired by Colombia and the Netherlands, and also I think some of the small island Pacific states, plus, of course, Brazil is right behind it too, the host of the last UN climate conference, where they may start moving this process of nations writing, getting off fossil fuel plans, phasing out fossil fuel plans. And in a sense, it's the middle-ranking nations, not the big powers. They don't seem interested. Is this an opportunity that could be the way forward for us? It's outside the UN process, but it could be really important for the whole story.
Oh, by all means. I think that if the highest number of nations possible get together and start the ball rolling, I think this is extremely important. And I hope that happens in Santa Marta, because we're going to sooner or later realize that we have to hear the scientific world, we have to hear what is happening, and the deniers will have to stop denying that this is a phenomenon that is happening and it is affecting the whole world. So I do think this is a very good opportunity. I hope that there's the leadership to put the ball rolling, and the leadership to try to get as many people and countries as possible behind that.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. So, Sandrine Dixon de Clèves, you introduced yourself earlier, but I'm going to do it again. Honorary Chair of the Club of Rome now, driving force behind many landmark assessments like Earth for All, and co-founder of the Systems Transformation Hub, and actually a member now of the advisory board of Anna's new company, which we're coming to in a minute, which is brilliant too. You mentioned this film, and we will show it on the final cut when it goes out to the rest of the world. But look, why does Europe need to stand firm on climate action? It's kind of a no-brainer, but I want you to articulate why. And second, what is the wider threat we're all facing right now in the world? What do you feel it is? Is it climate change? Is it disinformation? Is it both? Is it about democracy? Frame this. What are we facing right now? Not just in Europe, but the world, actually. Yeah. Watch that glass of water. I don't know what it's going to do.
Thank you, Nick, for that doozy of a question, and how wonderful it is to be with such esteemed former presidents. I mean, it's quite extraordinary. You spoke about the incredible wisdom of the indigenous people. I want to highlight again that both of you are part of the elders, which for many of us are the constant guiding light of what it means to be a true elder, and also what it means to be a human on this planet. So I just want to put that forward. Let me continue with saying that, to your question, Nick, as a systems thinker, it's all linked. And we cannot disassociate climate change from defense, from peace, from human values, from human security. It is all absolutely interlinked. And I think what we're seeing today is the erosion of a series of fundamental values that we as a community, and many of us as citizens, took to be truths. One was the rule of law, which is being eroded very rapidly as we speak in the United States, but is here as well. And what we're trying to do through the System Transformation Hub is actually unpack those patterns. The patterns are that while we are losing out on digital sovereignty, 80% of our data is being held by the United States. By the way, Trump could decide, oh, those nasty Europeans, let's just get rid of their data. And while he does this, he can continue to get rid of our climate data, which he has been doing as well. He is also attacking the very essence of our evidence base and our science base systematically. But this is happening at a pace which many of us are not noticing at the European level. Through the European Commission, that has just recently been put before the European Court of Justice, because actually American companies have lobbied so heavily and there has not been proper due process in terms of our own European laws. And we could just unpack more and more of the erosion of rule of law and the erosion of our deep values. You can bring it then to the elections. We are systematically seeing capital flows from the United States and from Russia, which are moving into populistic governments and again, undermining our democratic processes. So yesterday, there was an unbelievable transgender woman who actually spoke here below, who is the first trans representative inside the US Congress. And she said, we as the LGBTQ community are the first to see the erosion of rule of law. But she said, now we are seeing multiple erosions. And so my warning to all of you, she said to the audience that was out there, be careful what you wish for. Remember what you stand for. Complacency is complicitness. What we have built can be torn down very quickly. The security issues that we are actually facing are climate security, human security, democratic security, our regulatory security and rule of law, and they are multiple. Now that might seem huge, and it is complex, but I think that we have so many solutions to this. Using our voice, both through democratic processes, but also ensuring that we put in place the right mechanisms to enable us to take full control of our data back, to ensure that the way in which we purchase goods, we do so both in an environmental and climate-friendly manner, but also we start to buy European, which has, again, a double solution of enabling us to reduce our carbon emissions and also to ensure that actually we bring ourselves back to some level of sovereignty. But let me finish with this as President Santos is here. This is also the moment where Europe can stand proud alongside other nations who believe in similar values and use this as a moment to build new partnerships that go beyond our colonialistic past and enable us both to address development in a very different way. Because the last warning is very clear. Our development aid has been cut by 50% in almost every single country. Most of that money is going into defense. And there is absolutely no assessment of how we are properly addressing all these other security concerns through our capital flows at the public sector level. So this is the moment where we start to look at those interlinkages and we make this about a broader security concern than just a one issue around defense.
Thank you. Absolutely. I mean, there's so many. We need 3 hours really today for this. There's so many angles to this. What's going on? But I do remember in Paris when We Don't Have Time, we launched this campaign, "Make Science Great Again," and just after Trump came into power and started tearing down some of the climate institutions. And somebody from the French Academy of Sciences, who was one of the guests there, said what worried him so much about the cancellation of US aid investments was that we now had a big hole in the disease and virus monitoring system of the world. And that the next pandemic, we might not even see it coming. So, I mean, there are consequences of these decisions, real life consequences. No, you can't. You can come back in a minute because I'm sorry, I just have to get to Anna down the road. Anna, you're down the road. That means you're on the other side of the table. Anna, disinformation, misinformation. It's now become the talk of the town, whether it be in terms of climate or whether it be in terms of health or all kinds of areas of our normal lives are being flooded with rubbish. You are the CEO of a new social media company for Europe.
Yes.
What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, good question. I have an answer. So first I want to say I feel very humbled to be on this very esteemed panel. Thank you for joining. So I'm the CEO of W. W is a new social media platform made in Europe for the world, not only for Europeans.
Just 1 second, can I check? Is this microphone working or not?
I think it is. Yes.
It seemed very quiet to me.
Okay.
Okay, fine, carry on.
So we heard all these topics, you addressed them: geopolitics, security, defense, democracy, information, media, disinformation, sustainability, climate change, that all is linked together. And we feel that media, social media, is a very powerful tool. As we all know, it's the fourth power in a state. And we also know that, especially the younger generations, they use social media as the first media source. They go in the morning, check social media, they don't buy a newspaper at the kiosk anymore. This is why social media is important. And if you look at the global map, when you look at Europe, we don't have any major players here. There are a couple of smaller social media companies in niche areas. But what are we using in Europe? We are using LinkedIn, we are using, me included, we are using Facebook, Instagram, Snap, and then we are all from the US, and then we are using, some of us, TikTok, especially the younger generation, from China. So that means the data of the Europeans is hosted, the social media data, the very sensitive data is hosted either in the US or in China. And guess what? Misinformation, disinformation is probably also coming from these two areas. So, and this is why we feel, especially in times of geopolitical changes and frictions, we need to be more sovereign in Europe, and we need to have an own social media platform. And last year, I met with a couple of other like-minded people in Sweden, and we founded a company called W Social. And the idea is to build an alternative for Europe, for the world, and we would like to add, or we would like to offer something new to users. First, we would like to offer that the platform will be bot-free, because we feel that AI bots is the most important part to get the power back to the people. And this is why we will implement human verification, like a strong human verification mechanism, so that we can have a no-bot or bot-free social media platform. Second, the data will be stored in Europe on European servers owned by European companies. So we chose a service provider, hosting provider in Finland. It's called UpCloud. They have the data in Europe-based, mainly in Finland and Sweden, but also across the European Union. We also try, as Nick said, and Sandrine, we try to prioritize European products. We try to use only European services internally. Proton as an email provider, Brevo as a CRM system. Yeah, it's not easy from the start. You need to figure it out, but it works. It actually works. And then we would like to give the data back to the people, because some people to whom I talked said, you want to verify humans, you want to have an ID, you just want to collect the data. No, I'm not interested in the data. We had talks to our service provider over the last weeks. We want to structure it in the way that the sensitive ID data is stored on your devices. You have full control. I have no access to the ID information. And we also want to give the algorithm power back to the people. We want to make sure that the users can choose the algorithm. Yes, I want to stay more in my filter bubble, or I want to see a little bit more of society, or I want to see the full spectrum of society from the left over the center to the right, because we feel that all this hyper-fragmentation, hyper-polarization now results in a situation that we have all these different polarized opinions in society, and we feel that this could be a way, maybe not the only solution, but one solution to bring people back, because dialogue is key. If we lose talking to each other from the left over the center to the right, then we are lost. We need to talk to each other, and this is the value proposition we're working on right now. We try to launch, I can comment on that later, in the next couple of months, but this is what we want to do and what we want to achieve. And we would like to achieve that together with all of you. So we are currently having a wait list, and we like to invite people to join the wait list. And on the wait list, we will implement polling tools, and we will ask our future users questions. Do you want to have anonymous accounts or not? Or how do you want to structure the algorithm control? Because we want to build it together with you, especially for Europeans, but also for the rest of the world, because we think after I heard what all of you said, that this is desperately needed.
Very, very briefly, Anna, this was soft launched. I never know what a soft launch and a hard launch is, but it was soft launched in Davos at the World Economic Forum. The Prime Minister of Kosovo was actually wanted to be on the panel at the launch because he understands, obviously coming from Kosovo, like you do, President Santos, that disinformation and misinformation can lead to political instability and also war, right? Which in the Balkans was something else in the 1990s. So, briefly, what was the reaction from that launch in Davos, and what has it been since?
So, crazy. So we didn't expect that. So we had a pre-launch event in Davos, like a bit more than 3 weeks ago, and the feedback was overwhelming. So on purpose, we had the event on Monday in Davos. Most of you know that then the big political meetings are happening Tuesday and Wednesday. So we were a bit ahead of the curve, and then we became the talk of the town. And the feedback was overwhelming. And interestingly, when someone is launching something, they're mostly first the haters coming. But for us, it was the lovers were coming first, but then later.
The love was coming. Okay,
you cannot imagine. I received over the last 3 weeks thousands of emails, WhatsApp messages, LinkedIn messages, other messages of people say, we're waiting for you. Hurry the hell up. We need you desperately. Make sure, when can I join? When do you open the wait list? Of course, I mean, that's great to hear. But on the flip side, a couple of days after, we saw haters, especially on X, like memes, false information. Suddenly it was like, so the misinformation, a couple of examples. The World Economic Forum started W, no. The European Commission started W, not true. Ursula von der Leyen started W, together with Emmanuel Macron. And we already received, that was then right-wing party in Germany, we already received 500 million euros in taxpayer money to launch this. Unfortunately, the money has never received my bank account. So I would have loved that, but this is not. But it was very interesting to see how this misinformation was made up by bots, and then it was spreading. And there were only a couple or a handful of journalists who reached out to us proactively and said, can we please double check the facts? One of them was Euronews. Kudos to them. I already gave them kudos publicly, because they reached out and say, hey, quick question, is that W really launched by the European Union? And did you really receive 500 million in cash? I said, no, that's not true. Yep. But this is what you really see, especially with AI bots, social media, plus AI, everything is on steroids. Haters are on steroids, I mean, fun memes, I have to say. But it was very interesting to see the love. The love, and people were saying, you bring us back hope, and you bring us back pride. And that was nothing that I expected.
Good.
Can I ask you just one question? You were saying this is for Europe.
Oh, you can join President Santos.
Can you include the Global South?
We do. So, and guess what? So when we saw the wait list, we asked people to voluntarily give their information from which country they are. Mind-blowing. We have a lot of people from Latin America, Brazil, Argentina, Colombia. We have a lot of people from the US, West Coast, East Coast, Canada, Singapore, Japan, South Africa, Africa in general, Japan, Australia. Very interesting, and this is why I said at the beginning, it's a social platform made in Europe for the world, for the liberal, democratic, world that wants to give people back the control over the data and the control over the algorithm.
Right. Let's pause it there for a second and go to the audience, because Mary and President Santos have to go a little bit earlier than we wanted. So, questions to them first. Anybody want to ask either Mary or President Santos a question? Oh, come on, don't be shy. Oh, come on, surely somebody can. This lady here.
I will just ask, you can hear me, right? I think it's linked to the question of the business model for social. And Mary and President Santos, how might a country, on the assumption that this is a not-for-profit for benefit, like a B Corp structure, that this is a platform that does not seek to extract value, how might a country engage with something like W?
So how might a country engage with something like W? I mean, you're talking about a national government, are you?
I'm talking about a country made up of many entities, not only national governments.
Okay, countries made up of national entities. That's a tough question. maybe start, Anna, quickly, you start on what you think that means, and then...
something. It's for profit. We chose to be on purpose for profit because this is why we can attract investors. And we want to make money at the end, but we have the long-term goal. It's not short-term driven, like quarter by quarter. And we want to do it in a sustainable, responsible way, and we want to be compliant with European laws. So, of course, there will be advertising on the platform, but in a responsible way. And we would like to give users the power that they can decide which data they want to share with us. Then there will be additional revenue streams like micropayments, some other revenue streams. Of course, it's advertising driven, some other revenue streams will be added on top. It's for profit, but I can say that We Don't Have Time is the largest investor and shareholder of the company. So we have a strong root angle in the sustainability space.
Then my question would be to countries and cities, the opportunity for revenue sharing then, back with users and local communities, and how might this really begin to weave back together the fabric of trust?
Okay, so revenue sharing with cities and countries, and in other words, giving something back. Does that sound sensible, Mary?
I'm out of my comfort zone.
Okay. That was a really tough question, Kirsten. I think that was a bit unfair.
This could be a public-private partnership.
Yeah.
This is done in other areas where the public sector and the private sector get together for profit, but in the case of governments, they do it to stimulate, for example, infrastructure. So a public-private partnership from a government who is interested in the values and the objectives that you have, I would say it's a good investment and a very good decision to defend democracy.
Okay. Let's just be very careful with the time right now, because I know I'm looking... You go fast then.
Just to say that I had this conversation with the Brazilian government, and it's exactly that point. And it's beyond just an ownership model. It's also just a new model. They are so interested in doing similar things, and I think this is part of the conversation, since I'm proud to be on the advisory board of W. The conversation we're having is exactly what Anna is saying. This is a European model for the rest of the world. The rest of the world can also replicate the model. And I think this is the whole conversation. The Brazilians are really interested, and I think other countries are interested in starting to take their data back, moving towards similar types of social platforms. This opens up also a conversation between countries, which creates different types of partnerships, which I think is very interesting.
Okay, very briefly, Anna, because I want to get one more question from the audience for both Mary and President Santos.
And we also have the technical solution for that. Because W is based on the so-called AT protocol. It's a bit technical, but Blue Sky, maybe some of you know Blue Sky, is also on that protocol, which means our users can interact with Blue Sky users from the beginning. If Brazil, Colombia, Argentina wanted to have something similar, they can also build something on the AT protocol, and then we can already talk to each other. So I think we are built in a way which is like interoperable, and I mean, we are friends, with Blue Sky. So the more they're growing, the more we are growing. And that also means we don't start from scratch. As soon as our app is live, hopefully in a couple of months, the beta version maybe a bit sooner, our users can connect immediately with 40 million other users around the world.
Right, okay, let's pass my comfort zone as well, but I'm sure it's going to be absolutely wonderful. Okay, I'm with Mary there. Yes, sir.
So just a few minutes ago, a couple of blocks away, I was listening to the CEO of Shell, and he was telling a different story. And the story he was telling is that Europe has really gotten itself in trouble because it's spent so much money trying to build out renewable energy systems, and that has been largely a waste. His story is that they at Shell and in the industry know what's really happening and know what the world really needs. And they will very carefully steward us into some future age where we will shift to renewables and synthetic energy, but we're nowhere near that right now. And it was striking to see how happy that made the people in the room. And they all had beautiful suits. And I wonder, since no one really had any way to respond to it effectively. And yet there was this feeling in the room like, if we stay on your ship, we'll all be sinking really soon. How you think we should engage with that kind of rhetoric. It's not the disinformation we see on social media, it's the disinformation that the world's most powerful people say to us directly while we're eating lunch.
Right, so the question from this gentleman here, just for the viewers that will watch this show, is the CEO of Shell, around the corner, basically said that Europe had made a big mistake rolling out so many renewables, and that Shell basically had a better plan. Mary?
I think this one I can answer. Actually, we heard the elders of great wisdom recently about what's working and what's not as far as the climate and nature crisis is concerned. The goal setting by countries, not good. The politics, pretty bad. But the technology, superb. And the technology is superb. The way in which solar, wind, electric vehicles, all the other innovative ways of using energy are moving so fast in the right direction. So I don't know how close Shell wants to be with a certain administration across the ocean, but I don't believe for a moment that's right. The technology is absolutely there. And interestingly, I've just come from India, from the Self-Employed Women's Association, the poorest of the poor. They are greening their villages with solar panels. They are moving so fast. They are using sophisticated health thing to test the health in heat. They are getting heat insurance, insurance for climate shocks. I mean, the movement, I think we need to incentivize as far as we can that moving rapidly into renewable energy becomes affordable. It's the affordability problem. That's the problem. We need to make it affordable to everyone to move rapidly to the clean energy, which is becoming so much cheaper and so much better. I mean, that's what I like about the Columbia conference, if I could just say that. We're going to be talking about a just transition. The world hasn't properly talked about just transition. There's two kinds of just transition. A just transition out of what's harming us, and a just transition into the future, into the clean energy. It's a double just transition, and we need to really work it out by region, and then within that region by country, and talk about it with that excitement of the fact that if we really crack this, we have to move much faster. We have to move much faster because we have to solve the climate and nature crisis. And it's the technology that's going to drive it. And I mean, Mr. Shell, I just disagree.
President Santos, can I just note just a second before you do that, because they have to go, but President Santos, can I ask you quickly? Your country has fossil fuels, and I don't know if you have Shell in Colombia, but if they came to you with that statement, what would you do? Would you send them with a fly in their ear? Would they say, I'm sorry, you're on the wrong side of history? Get out of my country?
Well, this is one of the big challenges we have right now. The power of the oil companies, their narrative, and the reality of countries that depend right now on fossil fuels. How fast and with what help can they make the transition? What Mary was mentioning, do it with justice. This is a very important word. And how do you do it? This is one of the big discussions we have right now. But to one narrative that is the oil companies' narrative, you have to put another narrative that is more convincing and more real in order to counteract it.
I've got it. You and Mary have to go. Thank you so much for being with us. I hope we're going to have just a few more minutes with our other two guests, and then we'll be wrapping up. Thank you, President Santos. That's absolutely fantastic. Mary, thank you very much.
Can I answer that question?
Yes,
as
you
well?
can answer that question.
Because I actually lived off oil and gas for 10 years. As I worked for oil and gas companies as one of the chief advisors on phasing down sulfur, lead, and benzene. And my response to Shell is shame on you. Because in the 90s and in 2000, they were heavily investing in renewables. In those days, they also were starting to sign up to net zero types of requirements. And I say shame on you exactly for the reason that Mary said, is that actually that's bullshit. Because we know full well that actually the reason why they're all getting nervous is that renewable energy is starting to get affordable and is starting to really make a difference. So those power profit mongers are wanting to get every last amount of money for their shareholders in oil and gas. The second point that I'm going to make is, if this is not a good investment, then what the heck is China doing? Because they are absolutely moving in that direction. And so it's a death sentence for Europe. If we don't innovate ourselves out of the crisis right now, we are doomed as Europeans. And it was mentioned about the AMOC. What we need to realize is with the AMOC shift, Europe is the one that gets hit the hardest. We already know at 1.5 degrees, we lose 3% of GDP. At 3 degrees, we lose upwards of 17% of GDP. So everyone always says this is a global problem, it's not a European problem. No, this is very much a European problem. And right now, our European industry is telling us to wait, to halt, to not innovate, and we absolutely need to fight against that.
Yeah. In London, at the National Emergency Briefing, where scientists briefed politicians about directly, two British politicians, British scientists told them what is happening to the country right now because of climate change and what will happen. On this one, this AMOC thing, this North Atlantic Oscillation type thing, failing, right? Scotland is, I think, for 6 months at minus 32 degrees centigrade, and England is at minus 20 degrees centigrade for like 5 months of the year. Yeah. So basically,
and Iceland no longer exists.
Goodbye agriculture in one semi-large country off the west coast of Europe, right? So, I mean, and then how do you feed yourselves? And then what are you facing? So I'm sorry that I bumped into you. Please ask a question.
I mean, I got the answer. She said that what I wanted to say as answer. And I also want to say, I mean, the problem in Europe is that the fascism is growing with money and the industry. The problem is the industry, and where the money and power is, it's going really to the right side. And this is something, I think, I don't know how can we get the power back from them to get to the democracy, because when you don't have the power of money and to change something, but they can't do it immediately. And
we need to mobilize, don't we? I mean, my children woke up, I say children, right? There's no word in English for a grown-up child. It's an adult, but you can't call them children, because if you say children, they always imagine my children are little babies on the floor, you know, going, yeah, daddy. But no, they're 30 and 28 years old now and things like that. But when Brexit happened, they were in their mid-20s, they woke up in the morning and they said, Dad, what happened? And I went, well, did you go out and vote to stay in the European Union? They went, no, we just assumed that we would be staying in the European Union. I mean, this is about mobilization, right? Because the right are not the many are us in this room.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it takes, and I know that with Anna, and we've been talking a lot about this, it takes different types of actions. One of the best dinners, pardon me, at Davos was the New York Times dinner, where the 3 New York Times journalists accused corporates for not standing up for democracy. Several of the corporations, including NASDAQ, said, oh, but we need to keep our values close to our heart. And they said, absolutely not. This is a 1930s moment. This is why we need to make sure, all of us who work in corporations, or those of us who have an influence over corporations, that we speak to CEOs, that we make sure that within the corporations, There is a link with democratic values and continuing to move forward in European values of environment and social values. The other key point is exactly as you indicated, Nick. We have to vote. There are very different elections that are coming up, various different elections that are coming up that we need to make sure actually that we mobilize people. But maybe the last point, and that's why I made that little film. And it's a tiny little project, personal project of my own, because I have in my head the voice of my grandfather saying, don't forget history. And that little project has also gone viral. Why? Because we forget to think that we're Europeans. Because our governments are telling us that we're French, or we're German, or we're Hungarian, or we're whatever. At this moment in time, we need to unite as Europeans, because what the United States is doing and what Russia is doing, and even China, is trying to break us apart. And that's why we need to strengthen the rope and stand with courage as Europeans, because we built Europe together, and they're trying to destroy it.
Anna, very briefly, and then we'll take a question from the back.
I fully agree with you. We need to reunite, and we need to bring people in Europe, but also on a global perspective, who wants to do the right thing together. But I think things have changed. And we didn't expect that we feel such a momentum. So the emails that I'm receiving on a daily basis, they're at parts very political, like you give us back hope, you give us back perspective, how can we support? It gives me the chills. A guy reached out to me and said, I want to enter Czech Republic. One person said, we can bring the Baltic states. So it's not that people say, oh, I would like to sign up, where's the button? People are thinking, not only I want to bring my friends and family, they're thinking about countries. And this is I feel there's a movement. We maybe jumped or we felt a movement early on, but I think it's about motivation, bringing people together, doing the right thing, and I think together we can make a change. And I feel it's just the beginning, so it's happening, and I feel very, very positive about it.
You'll have to speak up because we haven't got a microphone, so if you can use your big, tall, big voice to blast across the room, please.
Yeah, I'll do my best. Question to Anna. First of all, really love the work that you're doing with W.
Thank you. What kind of state do you want to bring? What kind of state do you want to bring? Sorry, I was just joking.
Do you want to bring Germany?
You can bring Germany. Okay, good.
Well, let's bring Europe.
Okay, good. We like that. Okay, good.
But I love the work that you're doing. One thing you said about Davos, that there was this misinformation about European Union invested or Macron and von der Leyen behind that.
Yeah.
I actually think it would be fantastic if those were true, if those were the truth, because I think that's how we should think about it to make it really popular.
I would love that.
Wondering how can or are you in contact with these kind of leaders to sort of replicate what Trump was doing with True Social, moving away from Twitter and just posting all his bullshit on this new platform, partially because he wants to make money, but partially everyone now cites True Social to make von der Leyen, Macron, Merz, everyone else be on your platform to promote these messages.
Of course.
We cited there. Is there a way to get that?
We have a plan. So thank you for saying that. Of course, I would love to get 500 million euros from the. Don't get me wrong. We are also applying for European grants on a slightly smaller scale, I have to say. But we are, of course, in contact with the European Commission. We are in contact with different governments. You saw the panel earlier today. Because we want to create this momentum, we want to grab the momentum. I feel we need to pick it up from the street. And of course, there's a top-down and a bottom-up approach. So the top-down approach will be as soon as the app is ready and we can bring in people not only to the waitlist but to the full working app, to get the politicians in Europe, because they shall post on us and not on X. They can stay on X, but they shall give us the content like 1 hour before. That would be amazing. So there will be top-down approach, but also bottom-up. Like people shall spread the word, sign up to the wait list, invite their friends and families. Because what we are seeing, the wait list is growing. We spent zero money on marketing yet. Only speaking on panels, going to Davos, to Helsinki, to Munich, and to Stockholm, and soon to other conferences. Only by this, the wait list is growing exponentially, like a couple of thousand more users every day. which is incredible. But I agree with you, we need to talk more to politicians. I mean, I officially started this job 1st of February. I'm not even 2 weeks in the role. So, but I mean, and things are happening on very fast. But this is also something that Europe needs to learn. We need to be super fast.
Yeah.
We cannot say, oh, we write another white paper, and then we need a new law. No, we don't need new laws, please, no. So, but we need to be fast, and we need to pick up the phones, talk to our friends, and do something.
Can I just add to that as well? We need to be fast and strategic, because both we don't have time, and I know also W, as you said, got negative bots. You also had some of your data taken down in certain places. Just yesterday, I was informed by Meta and Instagram that they wouldn't actually show my film in a heightened level.
We will show your film
on Instagram. So it's, I mean, and this is a completely innocuous film, just saying people come together. This is not accusing anyone, but it's been labeled as political. So all I'm saying is, we do have to fight back as well. We have to be strategic, we need to be fast, we need to be smart in the way in which we move forward.
Mm-hmm.
But also bold. We also need to be bold.
I just have to add to that, because it was very funny, but it was either at the Glasgow UN Climate Conference or whatever, that X, was it still Twitter then? I have no idea. Anyway, whatever it was, actually tried to take a stream that we had on that social channel down on the grounds that the phrase climate change was too political, which was very interesting. And then when I was interviewing Christiana Figueres, the former head of the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change and the architect of the Paris Climate Change Agreement, on YouTube, they took it down because one person complained that the use of the term climate change was unproven science. And therefore, Google shut down the YouTube channel. You can imagine one person, some nutter, right? Probably from Northern England, I don't know, Manchester, someone like that. No, you wanted to ask a question, then I'll come to you, Sebastian. Then we have to shut the show down because we're beyond time. Sebastian, sorry, not the gentleman here with the beard. Yeah.
I totally agree with, like, we have to fight back and the eroding of rule of law. So I work as a managing director for Germany's biggest Q&A platform, and we spent like almost 1 year to comply with DSA rules, which I personally think are a good thing, right? While we have to deploy developers, the big social media platforms deploy lawyers, and nobody's currently held accountable. Like X is nudifying women, and not even our own government moves off this platform. So what can we do to hold these CEOs accountable of those companies, so that we actually, as Europeans, get a chance, because we obey the law while the others don't, and just rigging the money.
Okay. So how do we make Elon Musk and all the others that run Zuckerberg responsible for their actions?
So I think that European regulators are on it. The European Commission is on it, and I think this is what we read in the newspapers, that several countries consider to ban X, or to only allow that for over 16 or 80 years old people. But at the same time, I think what I will do, and what we should all do, talk to politicians, talk to lawmakers in Europe, talk to the regulators, and we want to do the same. And I already reached out. First week in job, I reached out to the Swedish Data Protection Authority, to the head of the European Data Protection Board, and say, we want to comply, but we want to have a dialogue. So you are part of this. And I think this is important, that also lawmakers and regulators in Europe understand that innovation is not falling from the sky. So, and it's pretty hard for European startups in comparison to US startups to do the same with all this legislation on top. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm in favor of European values, and I think it's good that we have some strict rules and we shall enforce them, but I think we don't need more laws in that space. Mm-hmm. But I think we can also do that in a smart way. I mean, this is what I've done for eBay for more than 11 years, like complying with all these, digital laws. It's doable, but you also need to be smart around it. But I fully agree with you. It's a competitive disadvantage for European startups. 100% agree.
By the way, we didn't say that. You used to work for eBay, right?
We can change that into, I don't want to reveal all our plans. You might see that in the media at one point. We would like to flip this into our business advantage, and for their US big tech disadvantage. There are some ways how you can use these laws in a smart way to flip the narrative a bit. I don't want to reveal too much, but I mean, we have been thinking about that a lot.
We're going to take one last question. So, Sebastian. I say Sebastian because I know him, so I can say his name, whereas I don't know all the people. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks, Nick. Sebastian from the Global Commons Alliance. Just building on this wonderful conversation. Thanks, thanks, first of all, for the conversation. One question in terms of that you mentioned earlier, Anna, in terms of how can we make sure we're not staying in our echo chamber?
I have an answer. Okay, good. So
how do we make sure on W, but also in this group, that we're opening up the conversation and bring in the CEO of Shell and others as well?
Yes, good idea. So as a first thing, I brought together the advisory board. We have a pretty big advisory board, 15, almost 20 people. Sandrine was one of the first people we asked because we are very much rooted in sustainability. But on purpose, I brought in politicians from different political, couleur, to the advisory board. So we have former ministers from Sweden, Social Democrats. We have Philipp Rösler on the advisory board, former German Vice Chancellor, libertarian and member of the Merkel government. We have people from former Google, ex-Google people, ex-PayPal, but Europeans from different. We have a former UK regulator for information integrity, Liz Denham. She is UK, but in Canada. So we try, and it's not over yet. So we will add more people to the advisory board. We also will add ambassadors, and it's important for me to add people from different political parties, different business areas, different tech areas, different areas of civil society, because we want to, exactly as I said, we don't want to stay in our echo chamber, because otherwise it's not going to fly. We want to have everyone on this side. If Donald Trump wants to have an account, he gets an account, but then he needs to verify as a human. He needs to stick to
that's going to be really hard, isn't it? Yeah, that's going to be hard to verify as a human. Yeah.
But I want to be we are rooted in sustainability. But we want, and if Shell CEO wants to join, he can join. But then also he needs to verify, and then we will also implement some measures. I don't want to reveal too much right now, to make sure or to incentivize true facts. Because this is so bad. What I've seen over the last 2 weeks, all this misinformation and BS that was out there. So there will be some measures, and we're also talking to service providers that can detect misinformation campaigns. So there are service providers already fighting back, and we try to bring all of them together. And you are invited to join the waitlist. We soon start some polling, like what do you want to see, how do you want to shape the community, and then we take the feedback, and then we start. Or we go as we improve as we go.
Well then, so I think we have to wrap it up there, but I hope you enjoyed it, learned something, stimulated, as some people say, by this conversation, and we could talk a lot longer, but great work that you're doing, Sandrine, great work that you're doing, Anna, and maybe see you again sometime. Bye.
Thank you, Nick. I always wanted to be here because I'm very interested in geopolitics very excited to be here for W today, because I feel geopolitics is the key to everything, especially now since we see a lot of friction in geopolitics, and it's all connected. Geopolitics, information, disinformation, media, it's all connected, and I think you can only understand media and the roles different players play when you understand geopolitics.
Do you feel that a conference like this needs to actually address things like digital integrity, digital sovereignty, disinformation and misinformation, as you just mentioned? I mean, or are they going to be talking about, somebody wants to grab Greenland, or obviously the tragedy in Ukraine? But these other issues need to be dealt with as well. As you rightly say, they're a security issue.
Yeah, totally. I think it's all connected. And Greenland is a good example. So a couple of weeks ago, maybe you remember, there were first news articles or news snippets that Trump is invading Greenland with troops. But these videos were totally AI generated and fake news, and people started to believe in that. People were like, oh my God, Trump is invading Greenland. No, he did not do that. yet. I hope so. I hope he will never do. But this is the connection, because media, especially with AI, is on steroids. All this misinformation and disinformation, together with AI, it can be distributed so quickly. And this is also what we've seen with W over the last couple of weeks. There was so much disinformation out there, and especially with AI, everything is moving so fast. But coming back to your topic, I mean, Greenland is a good example why it's so important to communicate facts. Because if you start to communicate misinformation on a bigger scale, it's getting really dangerous, because then the political agenda on a global scale is driven by misinformation, wrong information, and also, very prone to manipulation.
It was interesting at the soft launch, as I think it was called, in Davos at the World Economic Forum, that you were joined on the stage by the Prime Minister of Kosovo, or Kosovo, and of course a region, a part of the world, the Balkans, that went through terrific misery and hardship and war in the late 1990s. And I think he indicated quite strongly that, he feels social media and actually telling the truth, rather than propaganda, is very important for peace and security.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially since we see the young generation, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they are mostly consuming social media for news. They're not buying newspapers anymore at the kiosk. So they're the first that they do in the morning, they go on social media and they check the news on social media. And it's so important that we have trusted social media out there that's incentivizing quality journalism, fact-based journalism, and actually human interaction, and not interaction with AI bots. And this is what we try to achieve, and this is what we stand for.
You're going to have a go at making sure that everybody's on the platform is human and not a Russian bot or a bot from somewhere trying to spread propaganda and lies and other kinds of things. This is the way for a good conversation?
Yes, so we feel when you make sure that you have human interaction, then you have, of course, no AI bots. Because with AI bots, the problem is that you never know from which force they are, manipulated, what is the driving force behind it. And we also feel with human interaction, if people, post something, for example, under their name, their reputation is connected to that. You have less hate speech, less misinformation, less propaganda, less manipulation, and people post stuff under their real name. So, and this is why their reputation is connected, and this is what we see on platforms where humans are verified, or humans are, not forced, but, incentivized to post something under their real name. It's way more civilized, way more friendly, and at the end, it contributes to a way better, dialogue we have in the public.
I received your CEO update, and I think I got it. I think I got number 2, yeah. And there was some fact or figure there. I think like 47% of people are a bit now bored with the mainstream social media. Is that right?
Yeah, this is also what I read recently. I found that very interesting. And what I feel, people are bored by communicating with AI bots, because on some social media platforms you don't know any longer, am I talking to Nick Nuttall, or is it an AI bot that's called Nick? Or humans want human interaction, and this is what we are seeing on a bigger scale, that many other companies, they offer live events, live features, human interaction. This is what the public wants.
And it's not just bots, is it? I mean, there are people with accounts, posting all kinds of things. They say they have some name or they have some code name. But we'd like to know why, for example, are they, trashing climate action? Or why are they supporting something else? At least if you know who the person is, you can actually understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, that's a good question, and we are currently debating that internally. There are a lot of pros and cons for both sides. Of course, my preference would be that everyone would post content and share content under their real name, so that we know Nick Nuttall has just posted this, whatever opinion.
This terrible opinion on something.
Amazing opinion on something, and we know it's coming from Nick, we trust him, we know his background, and we know that he's an expert in communication coming from the United Nations. So this is what, of course, builds trust. On the other side, we also heard from many people the feedback they would love to have anonymous accounts, because especially for people or users that live in dictatorships, maybe they are afraid to share their real opinion or their true opinion under their real name, and this is why we're currently debating. I think we should offer both, but we need to incentivize, personalized accounts, because, I mean, you see it on social media platforms when the content is connected to a real person and a real name and a real, reputation, then people communicate way more civilized, way more friendly, because they know everything can backfire. And we also want to know the source where this information is coming from. Is this trusted or not? But of course, we also see the advantage of protecting privacy a bit more. What we also try to introduce soon, we will introduce polling in the CEO updates, because we want to gather also the feedback from the future users, what they want, what they feel is needed, what are the pros and cons, because this is only what we think as a team, but we would like to understand what the bigger crowd is thinking, because we want to build something together with the future users, because this is for everyone and not just for us as a team.
And the timetable for going live for the world, as it were, or for Europe and the world, when is that? Is that still the same timetable as in Davos?
Yes, so in Q2 we will launch the beta version for a smaller group, and then in Q3 we will launch an even broader beta version with selected media partners, and in Q4 the plan is that we do the global full launch.
I like the way you pronounce beta. You pronounce it better. It's like it's getting better and better and better each quarter.
Good catch.
Thank you very much indeed, Anna. That's great. So we got another great guest with us here at the Munich Security Conference. If you could say who you are and who you're representing.
Hey, I'm Ben. I'm one of the co-founders of the Political Tech Summit /Partisan. And well, yeah, we're trying to improve the world like everybody else, one step at a time, by bridging the gap that still exists between politics and technology.
It was pretty clear to me from the debate that we just saw this evening that many have this feeling that politicians themselves haven't really understood the importance of understanding social media. Is that a kind of very broad brush comment, but a valid one?
I mean, not just politicians. We as liberal democracies have lived a life for way too long. It's not just politicians. It's also political institutions. It's NGOs. It's the whole political mainstream that had access to power via mainstream media outlets and the traditional info echo system. So these challenger parties, not just on the far right, but with different Confucianist ideologies. They had no access to traditional media, to the mainstream information ecosystem. So they had to come up with clever solutions. They were the innovators, whereas we became the more established agents of the status quo.
Right. And is your sense that that social media itself is a problem in the political process, or that it's just there, it's a neutral thing? Or I mean, I got a sense from a lot of people today that they felt the existing channels have certainly become complex and challenging in terms of public understanding.
I mean, from a European perspective, it sometimes feels like that's something that is very true. But if you look at other parts of the world, social media is seen as this force for liberation, for emancipation. So we have to ask ourselves, what is the context in which we make these statements? And maybe it's the world that we have created, especially here in weird Western educated, industrialized, rich and democratic countries, that have led us into this mess. But I think there is no clear answer of good and bad, because we have agency and we can improve on these systems. So in the end, it comes down to clever entrepreneurship, the right incentives, and of course, regulation. But the thing is, most regulation is backward looking instead of anticipatory. And if we create systems, if we create public spaces where these mechanisms sometimes that work via our tribal instincts or our animalistic still instincts are overcome, we can create new spaces. But at the same time, we also have to take in mind that we are not blank slates and that emotions and values drive the conversation as much or even more than fact-based truths.
So you mentioned entrepreneurship, and so that we can deal with systems, so we can evolve things. So we have somebody here with us, Anna Zeiter, who is Zeiter. I must get my German Zs better pronounced, from this new social media endeavor called W Social. You just listened to what our colleague here just said. What are your reflections on this?
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Happy to be here. Hi, Ben. So we are building a new social media platform made in Europe for the world. It's called W. And we would like to tackle a couple of the issues that you addressed. For example, misinformation and disinformation, because we see that currently on some of the other major player social media platforms, there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation going on, also a lot of systemic manipulation. And this is mainly driven by AI bots. This is what we see. And this is why we will verify users as humans in a proper way, not by counting zebra crossings or, traffic lights in weird 9-tile pieces. It needs to be something more elaborate. We are thinking of human verification with a personal ID, because this is what AI does not have. AI does not have a face, and AI does not have an identity. And we're currently looking into systems like Bank ID or something similar because it needs proper verification. I myself, I don't have any interest in the data. We are currently looking into options that the user can then hold the data on his or her device. So I don't want to have the data. I want to have as little data as possible, because the less data you have, the less prone you are to have a data breach. I'm not interested in that. And with these measures and other measures on top, we would like to tackle the issue, because we feel that geopolitics, democracy, misinformation, media, it's all connected. And when we see what are the young generations like Gen Z, the millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, how do they consume media? They go first on social media. They don't buy newspapers at the kiosk. If we want to reach these people, and I think this is also important for you from a political perspective, we need to be there where these people are. And this is why we think social media is great, but we need to do it right. And we try to make it right. We won't be perfect from the beginning, but we also would like to involve the potential future user base to give us feedback. And we will be rolling out pollings, and we try to get feedback from the future users to see, how do you see a better social media platform? What can we do? What shall we stay away from? To get input from the crowd. Because this is not a single project that I'm doing with a small team. This is a project that we as a European family should do.
I mean, we'll have to wait and see, I know, for W Social, and which has a strap line, I think, called Trust My Feed. Correct? Yeah. And we'll have to see how it's going. But in principle, do some of the ideas sound like they might be going in the right direction on the basis of your experience of this world?
I mean, what we're currently seeing, and I think social media is dead. Stone cold dead. The term shouldn't be used anymore, because it's not social media anymore. It's not connecting. The current form, like short form video content, that's no longer social media. It's algorithmically amplified content. People try to hack the algorithm, they do engagement farming, and they try to play a completely different game from what we, as people who still experience the golden age of social media, were used to experience as social media. But I do think that the value of real human connections does increase and will increase in the coming years, because and that's also something that we briefly touched on. Most traditional platforms will be filled with synthetic media. There are different reports out there that more than a quarter, sometimes more than 50% already of new content is synthetic. So in the end, it's basically machines or bots producing content, which is then consumed by other bots, and we are probably and there is this theory of enshittification. So we might come to a point where some kind of switch will be flipped, and people realize, oh no, this is just entertainment, this is just distraction, it's just another dopamine hit, where they might want to go back to something where there is a real human connection, verified human beings, where you can actually have a chat or consume humorous content or very creative content by human creators. And I think there's a niche and there's potential for that, but I think the dominant trend towards short form video content will be with us for a very, very long time.
Anna, you had your CEO update just this week that said that maybe that time is coming because some people are getting very bored with the current social media landscape.
Yeah, and I agree with what you said. So people want more human interaction and more live interaction. And if you see observe the big trends in Silicon Valley. So we've seen that Mark Zuckerberg, for example, took away a lot of resources from the Metaverse project because it didn't get the traction that he thought it would have. We also see that companies like Netflix and Airbnb bet on more and bigger live events, like bigger live stadiums and live shows. And this is also what I've seen on some e-commerce platforms, that live events, live auctions are very successful. And this is also what we would like to embrace, like maybe live presentation, live debates, live chat groups. I mean, not from the beginning, but we are developing the product as we go, because people are sick and tired of just AI interaction. I mean, AI is good. We should use it in a smart way for repetitive work. But this is what makes us humans. We want to have human connections. We want to have fun. We want to exchange. We want to have a debate. We maybe want to have a fight. And this is what we try to embrace. And I'm with you. People want to go more back to meaningful human and live interaction.
Do you think this could be the end of the cat video?
Cats are live. I mean,
Okay, I was getting nervous there for a second, yeah.
of course, our social media platform is not focused on cat videos and funny ski accidents. What we want to build is a global platform made in Europe for a global dialogue. And we also would like to give the algorithm back to the users. We want to give the data back to the users. They will hold it on their device. We want to give the algorithm back. What does it mean? So right now, other social media platforms, they dictate, oh, you stay in your filter bubble. We would like to give users the option, yeah, I want to stay in my filter bubble. Or I want to be in my filter bubble, want to see a little bit what's going on in society. Every 10th post should be from a different opinion bubble. Or I want to see the full spectrum. So people have the choice. And then we can also say, for kids or for minors, it's like on purpose, per default, not in the filter bubble, but they see the full spectrum of society. So, and we are very open to discuss this with lawmakers, with regulators. We want to do the right thing because we are playing the long game and not the short game.
Any final comments?
Yeah, cat videos are what social media was made for, and I think they are evolving. No, jokes aside, I mean there are certain trends, and some of these trends involve storytelling, and that's nothing that comes out of LLMs, but it's human creators creating series, Netflix-like series, how they build houses, how they renovate old buildings, how they create beautiful paintings, and it's storytelling in short form videos with hundreds of episodes. And that actually shows that even if there are better cat videos than ever before, the human factor, creativity, humor, joy, but also sometimes anger are still what makes us human, what drive engagement, and they are not just confined to one part of the ideological spectrum, but we are all humans and we like to express ourselves, so we can create these spaces. And I think that especially European tech sovereignty is a very big thing. And even if some companies might not succeed, entrepreneurship is problem solving. And from every problem that we want to solve or try to solve, we learn something, take something with us, and we can build on the steps or stand on the shoulders of little giants and become even more impactful giants. So we need more entrepreneurship in Europe, and that's also the message of the Political Tech Summit. Bring people together, create real communities, marketplace not just of ideas and products, but also a community of practice where people come together, solve problems, fix things that go wrong, and create something new.
So, I suppose it's a wait and see then to see W social when it comes and whether it meets your expectations of what you think a social media channel should be. And Anna's going to try her best to make it the most human social media platform in the whole world.
No, I mean, everyone is welcome. This is my final word. I don't have a political agenda with this. Everyone is welcome, from the left to the right to the center. People who think sustainability is a big thing we need to solve, people who don't think that. So everyone is welcome. What I want is an open debate among humans, fact-based.
So we have another wonderful guest with us here at the Munich Security Conference. If you could say who you are and where you're from.
Yes, so my name is Birgitte Vartdal, and I'm the president and CEO of Statkraft.
Could you tell us a little bit about Statkraft? Because you're a new name to me, but I'm sure you're not a new name in Norway or in the Nordic region.
Sure. So Statkraft is actually the largest producer of renewable energy in Europe. But it comes from our Norwegian hydropower, as you allude to. We are producing 1/3 of Norway's power. But we are developing and operating assets across Europe and also in South America. And we also have a big markets activity where we provide contracts to other developers of renewables, and we sell renewable power to industry.
So the reason why Norway's got so many electric cars running around the roads is in part, or large part, because of you.
Well, it's part of that. We have a renewable electricity system, that's true, so we fuel by electricity. But also it's fair to say that there was some support schemes early on that really changed sort of the mix of cars. But that has now turned totally into a country where almost all new cars are EV cars.
So well done. Let's talk about, the issue of security, climate change and renewables, because, of course, we had the war in the Ukraine start, and then Europe realized that they'd been so dependent on Russian gas that they needed to quickly move away from that. And in a part, that's happened because of more renewables in Europe, in part because we've imported some gas from the States and other places. But, it was an incredible thing. We suddenly realized, that our security is about being more on renewables than imported fossil fuels. Is that your take on it?
Absolutely. So I think some people say that affordability and security is about continue to import, but I must commend the European Union here and the Repower EU, because the speed of implementation of renewable in Europe over the last year has been quite impressive. And for me, renewable power, it will generate power locally, so you are sort of independent in that sense. It's affordable. And not to forget, even though it's not on the top agenda today, it also supports reducing climate emission.
Absolutely, which is a security risk all in its own. Yeah, absolutely. What about the flip side of this? Because a lot of the Nordic countries in particular, but also the United Kingdom and Germany have been increasingly concerned about, the vulnerability of renewable energy systems. Maybe this is more offshore wind, but, is that a concern as well? Because with all this infrastructure out there, how do we make it secure against an unfriendly nation that might want to undermine our electricity and energy supplies?
Well, of course, security is a critical topic. We are providing critical infrastructure. But I would also turn it a bit around. Renewable power is more distributed, so it's more dispersed. And if you get hit one place, that can also be compensated other places. Having said that, increasing grid connections so that you have more flexibility and different sources is one element. And of course, both physical security and cybersecurity are topics that we and the industry are increasingly focusing on. It's been a focus all time, but we have to step up every day.
And in Norway, you mentioned obviously interconnections, grids and things like that. It was, to me personally, quite astounding a few years ago, because then we all found that a lot of renewable energy systems that had been approved and were ready to go, had been built, suddenly couldn't find a connection. I think in Europe, in the EU, it was like 12 years. In Britain, it was 15. And in the States, I think it was like 12 or 13 years that people were waiting. I talked to the DG of Energy, Ditte Jorgensen, in Belém at the last climate conference, and she felt that they were actually, doing better on that now. Is that your sense?
Yes, so of course we work on permitting and getting grid access at the same time as we work on developing the renewable projects. So it's not that it's constructed and kind of waiting to connect, but it's really one of the elements that takes time in order to achieve connection. We are pushing for that across our markets because it is critical to speed up. In some areas it's a bit better, but for instance in the UK we know they are looking at the queue, how to prioritize within projects, which projects are most mature. And this is a critical activity in order to speed up. And across Europe, as to my understanding, there are still many projects that are waiting for this permit or grid connection. So that is really critical to continue to focus on.
And looking into the future, I'm not asking you to look in tea leaves or a crystal ball, but I mean, what do you see coming in terms of your business and your activities? What's the future for your company?
So Statkraft invest all our money into renewable. We have some gas-fired power plants in Germany, a minor part of our generation, but all new investments is in renewables. So we are doing what we can to develop as much renewable, operate as much renewable, and trade as much renewable power as possible. So our ambition is in Norway to upgrade our hydropower, across Europe to develop solar, wind, battery, grid projects, and also in South America. And I think that will keep us busy because there are plenty of opportunities.
Very good. So well done, and thanks for being here, and thanks for the interview, and I hope you enjoy yourself here in Munich.
Thanks a lot for inviting me.
So another wonderful guest here at the Munich Security Conference. If you could say who you are and who you're representing.
Sure, Diane Holdorf. I'm here from the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, WBCSD.
And why is it important for you, the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, to be here in Munich?
The intersection between business performance, business continuity, security of supply is directly connected to national security issues. These are linked in ways that aren't really fully understood and aren't being discussed sufficiently here in Munich.
Climate and security was some years ago a really hot topic, and all the military were producing reports on, risk to their own, you might say, business model as well, in terms of ports in America, for example, that might be at risk of flooding, where the military or the Navy had their boats and things like that. It was really a moment of, I suppose, power speaking to power, in a sense, about what the future might be like if we don't act on climate change. That doesn't seem quite as intense a debate right now. Should it be, and should the Munich Security Council raise their game again a bit on this issue of climate change and security?
So climate is an underlying significant contributor to the increasing security risks. What we're seeing from a business perspective is that it's already manifesting in the annual financial performance through physical risk and security of supply. So these are moving now into very operational concerns that are being managed, climate-induced, business reality current management required. So this shift from only talking about it as a climate risk is not as big a threat because it's already having to be acted on because the cost implications are so real. Yes, of course, it should be higher on the agenda, but the reality is we need to be looking at how is physical risk being addressed, how is security of supply being addressed, how is competition for supply being addressed as trade flows shift, and these are all being changed because of the rising risk of civil unrest, climate implications, weather drivers, change in water patterns. Those are the issues that are coming already into reality.
And can we do this without the United States of America?
The United States of America is going to continue to work on these issues, regardless of what the voices are saying at multiple levels. So the reality from a business perspective is we are addressing these drivers and moving it through business performance. That is going to continue. It's moved into business language, however, and has become therefore investable. And that makes a big difference when it comes to how do we have to be talking about the issues.
Yeah, how you talk about issues, communication is very important. What was interesting in Belém at the last climate COP was that the issue of disinformation and misinformation also came quite high on the agenda, really for the first time, I think, in a COP. And I'd like to introduce somebody from a new company that is the CEO of a company called W, and they are going to launch a social media channel in Europe. Anna, could you tell us why this social media company and this social media channel might be special and might be of interest to the World Business Council on Sustainable Development?
Absolutely. So thank you, Nick, for the question. So I'm the CEO of W Social, and we are building a social media platform made in Europe for the world. And our core pillars are that we would like to verify users as humans, because with that we try to fight disinformation and misinformation, because we feel with less or hopefully no AI bots on the side, we have less, manipulation from different sides. And we also want to embrace the fact of fact-based communication, fact-based dialogue, because especially in the field of sustainability and climate change, it's important that we have a fact-based dialogue, because there's so much disinformation out there, and based on disinformation, it doesn't help anyone in society if you have wrong facts and debating wrong things. So, and this is what we can contribute to the sustainability space.
Nice.
I mean, I'm not asking to say, what do you make of that, but do you feel that somehow fighting disinformation or countering it is helpful for all our interests in terms of climate action?
Oh, it's critically important. I think it's foundational to how we actually drive outcomes that we need. So the work that you're leading, congratulations, by the way, I think that's going to go a long way towards getting us to platforms where people can trust what it is that they're reading. Yes. And knowing that people are really embedded into their little bubbles, yes, breaking those down into the sort of data-driven, analytic-based information sharing, I think is going to be key.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. And I think, as you said, trust is key, so that people can trust the information they see. We also like to support quality journalism, because we feel right now society is so fragmented and polarized, because everyone is living in their tiny little filter bubble, maybe driven by misinformation, driven by manipulation. And our goal is to bring people together and talk to each other based on true facts, because this is truth, and democracy is kind of connected. And this is why we're all here, because we all need to understand geopolitics. That's the big framework where all these forces come into play.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that you're coming forward during the Munich Security Conference to talk about the need for a new trust-based platform for data sharing and information sharing, and importantly, human connection.
Yes. Yeah.
Super.
Because this is also what we feel in the age of AI. I mean, everyone is using AI at work, but what we need is human interaction. I mean, this is what we're looking for, and I think this is what's worth being a human. And we can use AI to help us support, business or doing repetitive work, but at the end, it's about human connection and about meaningful dialogue in society.
I think it's also about ensuring that the data that people give to tech companies doesn't get abused as well. So this won't be using European data protection laws, or the data will be housed here. Because for Europeans, their data is either in the US or China, and maybe in Russia, who knows? So, I mean, these are the only other places. So I think it's about creating a diversity of high quality places that you can house your data, rather than, in a sense, relinquishing it to other powers that at certain times may not use it quite as carefully as they should do. So thank you very much for being with us, and great, blessings on your work. It's good work, very good work indeed. And hopefully you'll be at the next climate conference in maybe Turkey, or for sure, yeah. And we're hoping also to be in Colombia at this big fossil fuel phase out meeting, and hoping, yeah. And we're very hoping that that can work. And maybe even W might be there, you never know, to try and talk about it.
Everything is closely connected. Misinformation, fact-based communication media is so important for sustainability and to fight climate change, because when you know the facts, you know what to do.
Nice.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Good.
It's been a pleasure to speak today.
Thank you as well. So we have another wonderful guest with us here at the Munich Security Conference. If you could say who you are and where you're from.
Sure. I'm Erin Sikorsky, and I'm the director of the Center for Climate and Security based in Washington, D.C.
And you're here in Munich. It's an iconic event, is a Munich Security Conference. I suppose from the point of view of climate change and security, I think we were chatting a little earlier, I took the perspective there had been a golden age of attention on the topic of climate and security, with a lot of the military in Europe, the UK, NATO, in America, United States, India even, Australia, you name it. Everyone seemed to be bringing out reports on links between insecurity in the world and climate change, plus also the risk to military itself of having to deal with many extreme weather events. What changed, or what has changed in your perception?
Yeah, well, the political environment has changed, right? And talking about climate quite so openly has become more challenging. I think the good news is, because they did all that climate assessment, all those reports, now the hard work of actually changing how you operate, changing where you put your money, how you fund resilience, can actually act on those reports without having it, having to be in maybe the public discussion quite as much.
I think for those of us that have been involved in the environment for a long time, there was a feeling that somehow the military was a voice of reason that was sort of unquestionable, yeah? That, if somebody from a renewable energy company says, we've really got to do this, then somebody on the other side could say, hey, hold on a second, But the military was that sort of trusted voice, a bit like weathermen and weatherwomen. Yeah. Is that voice still being heard in administrations, do you think, even in countries where they seem to be turning their back a bit on climate change?
Look, I think you're right. Military leaders are a trusted voice because they've experienced these climate hazards firsthand. If you talk to someone who's served in the Indo-Pacific or someone who's served in Iraq, they've seen extreme weather and they've seen our military partners affected by that. And I think those voices are still heard. I was just in Brussels at NATO before coming to Munich, and this conversation is still happening there, finding ways to build resilience. And you see generals like General Tom Mittendorp, who used to head the Netherlands Ministry of Defense, General Richard Nugi from the UK. When they speak, people listen, and I think they're still having an impact.
So I interviewed General retired Nugi in London because there was something called the National Emergency Briefing on Climate Change and Nature, which was where they organised a meeting where experts came and talked to politicians. It was interesting because it was about the UK. It wasn't about Latin America. It wasn't about, Timbuktu. It was about the UK, and the dialogue was interesting. And what he said I thought was interesting, because I interviewed him, was that he said that in the military, you work on the basis of the worst case scenario and act upon that. He said with climate change, we're always acting on this is the worst case scenario, but let's hope it's a bit a bit nicer than that. He said, we're making a mistake. I mean, do you think he's right with that?
I think he's absolutely right. I think other national security issues, say potential conflict with China, the U.S. military is preparing for the worst case scenario. But we actually have a lot more information about climate change to act on than what's in Xi Jinping's mind, right? And so I think there's actually opportunity there for us to invest and get ahead. But yeah, we have to plan for that tail risk, the worst case scenario, because as we see with climate science all the time, we're finding out that things are happening more quickly than we thought. Extreme weather events are more destructive than we initially thought they would be. The Arctic's warming 4 times faster than the rest of the planet. If we had this conversation a few years ago, we would have said it was warming 2 times faster, you know? So there's real importance here. You see militaries deploying all the time in response to climate hazards as well. My organization, since 2022, militaries have deployed over 650 times in over 100 countries to respond to floods, wildfires, extreme drought. So it's taxing their resources and their capabilities, every week.
I saw the UK paper, I think you saw it too, which was informed by MI5 and MI6 on what could happen to food systems and therefore security around the world if we don't deal with climate change. Then we had this paper from Johan Rockström from the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impacts and the Icelandic Environment Minister on something called the AMOC might fail. Now, I remember as a journalist with the Times in the 1990s talking about the North Atlantic Oscillation might fail and that the UK ports would become frozen. I think it's a more fancy name. It's coming back a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. And actually at this conference last year, the Germans released their own intelligence assessment on climate change that was informed by their intelligence apparatus. So I think it's part of the conversation. Tomorrow here, I'll moderate a main stage town hall on climate security. So people are still talking about it because they are experiencing it daily, right? And they know they need to get ahead of it. So I think the AMOC, other tipping points, food security, and as you said, it's happening here in Europe in our own backyards, not just far away. Yeah.
So last thing, let me bring in Anna. So Anna here. So one of the things at Belém was for the first time disinformation and misinformation became an issue in terms of climate change. Anna is the new CEO of a new social media company for Europe. And she has a background in law and a background in privacy and AI. We wanted to tell you about it. Yeah, so Anna, tell Erin about it.
Yes, so I'm the CEO of W Social, and we are a new social media platform. We are launching soon, the first beta version, and it's a social media platform made in Europe for the world, and we want to bring back the good old Twitter style, like a global platform made in Europe for, open dialogue and preferably really fact-based. And I think this is where our both worlds are matching, because we see, especially in the field of sustainability and climate change, there's so much misinformation and disinformation out there. And this is also one of the things we would like to tackle, but on a bit of a broader scale, not only for sustainability, but for every area of society, because we feel there's so much disinformation manipulation out there. And we feel it's especially driven by AI bots who are running most of the, very prominent on most of the other social media platforms. And this is why we would like to implement a human verification, so that we make sure that there are no bots on the platform, but real humans with real interaction, because we feel this could be a benefit for society entirely, but especially also for the sustainability space.
Great. That's wonderful. And actually, we've been working on disinformation quite a bit, because we see after extreme weather events, immediately disinformation campaigns launched from Russia, launched from China sometimes, trying to sow mistrust within governments, within countries, blame marginalized groups for the extreme weather events. So having a new tool in our toolbox, a new verified social media capacity, I think would be really useful in managing that.
I think you're just looking right now, can you say, about whether people have to verify their identity as well, which is an interesting question when they post. That's a challenge there, yeah?
Yeah, we are debating that right now. If we allow also, I mean, of course, everyone needs to verify as a human user because we want to avoid bots. But then the second question is if you can post something under a pseudonym, because people are sometimes, I mean, they're in dictatorships or they don't want to reveal their true opinion. So this is what we're currently debating. But after we pre-launched in Davos 3 weeks ago, we saw already misinformation coming against us, which was very interesting. So some people said we are funded by the European Commission with 500 million euros. I haven't seen the money yet, so would be nice. So checking my bank account on a daily basis. But that was a proof of concept that, especially with AI, everything is on steroids. So then there's misinformation out there, and then it's AI generated, and suddenly, bam, 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 you see that on all social media platforms at the same time on a scale like insane. And this is why we feel it's time to bring the good human interaction, human communication, a trusted platform back, and we really embrace true facts and fight against disinformation as best as we can.
That's great.
I'm just going to say one last thing. In Davos, we had the Prime Minister of Kosovo with us. And it was very interesting because, of course, about the Balkans, we know, was full of propaganda and misinformation that led to so much carnage and suffering. And he was right behind this new platform and also echoed the climate angle as well, that, you know, because he sees misinformation happening right now in his own country. And they're going through some very extreme changes in weather events in Kosovo. I was checking that. So, I mean, it's all linked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's absolutely all linked, and it's systemic risk, right? You have one thing layer on top of another. So you have to figure out the right tools in your toolbox to manage that risk, and whether it's disinformation about democracy or disinformation about migrants or about extreme weather events, the tools you use to combat that are all similar. And so I think, you know, you can have co-benefits to addressing these issues that help security writ large.
And I think this is also one reason why we're here, because everything is connected to geopolitics. So like this is the bigger framework, because if you understand geopolitics, you also understand which forces are driving what kind of interest. And this is the overarching framework. And this is all connected, like geopolitics, information, disinformation, information integrity, democracy, so sustainability, all these topics are kind of connected. And I think to understand the big frame, it's important to be here to understand what's going on.
Well, thank you very much, Erin. Sorry for popping this one in at the end, but we just... I think it works out very well indeed. Yeah. Lovely to meet you. You're doing great work, and we're absolutely thrilled to have had a chat with you about this, and best of luck here at the conference.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you, Erin.
Yeah, thanks. Really great to meet you.
We have another guest here at the Munich Security Conference. We're talking about social media and some of the challenges that society is facing. If you could say who you are and where you're from.
My name is Eske. I'm from Copenhagen, and I am working with social media.
You made a very interesting presentation about how you were helping the cancer charity in Denmark to deal with misinformation. Could you tell our viewers a little bit about what you did?
Yeah, so basically, I think when we talk about misinformation, it's really important to understand that we don't correct it by spreading facts necessarily. We need to understand who is responding to misinformation, who's viewing it, and why does it work on them. And then we need to get in those social media spaces ourselves, as institutions, as authorities, as NGOs. We have to listen to them. We have to be a voice they can trust, and we don't need to push facts down their throats, but we have to be somebody who, in the end, they might turn to in order to get some solid advice when everything else fails.
And did you find out at all who is promulgating the facts? Are these just ordinary people with a belief system, or are they feeding off information from somewhere that's distorting their worldview?
Yeah, I think we have to divide it into three buckets, right? So we have senders responsible for producing misinformation. Those could be malign actors, those could be commercial actors, it could just be people wanting to tap into the energy that is around a certain topic. Then we have the platforms that don't do enough, definitely, and then we have the users. So people who actually feel seen and heard by misinformation. Now what we have to figure out is, how do we become the one they listen to and trust, instead of the people basically spreading misinformation.
So I wanted to introduce you to Anna Zeiter, who's the CEO of a new social media channel, which is going to be launching later this year, but is going through the steps towards that right now. And you also had the debate going on here, and I think there were moments at which you were trying to jump up and down. But tell us just a little bit about what your perspective is, what you're trying to do, and how it might help some of the discussions we heard this evening.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So we try to build, or we are building a social media platform made in Europe for the world, but we would like to tackle some of these issues you addressed. So first we would like to verify users as humans, because we feel like this we can already eliminate the AI bots, and this is what we're seeing on some of the social media platforms right now. They have in parts more than 50% AI bots, and then you don't know from which forces are driving these bots. So, and then we're also discussing if people need to post content with their clear name or under pseudonym. I mean, there are pros and cons. Of course, we see if opinions are attached to you as Nick Nuttall, for example, your reputation is connected to that. But in some societies, of course, maybe in a dictatorship, people don't feel safe and secure to publish or to share their opinions under their real name. So there are pros and cons, but we would like to tackle that. And the interesting thing is we just experienced the same with us. So we had a pre-launch event 3 weeks ago in Davos. And then you see in the first days, like the real information, like the facts that we also gave to the press was spread. But then days later, facts got turned, changed, and suddenly after 1 or 2 weeks, what was out there in the press was crazy. Like, we are funded with 500 million euros from the European Commission, Emmanuel Macron funded us, so like crazy news. But then you see suddenly, okay, maybe first things was a misunderstanding, but then suddenly things are getting escalated and multiplied, and suddenly it's like out there. And at one point you see that certain political parties jump on these fake news and they make it even bigger. So, and I think this is a bit of a proof of concept that a new social media platform is needed, which is focusing more on human verification and to make sure that we establish mechanisms to find misinformation and to fight misinformation and disinformation and incentivize facts, because this is what society needs. We need to have fact-based discussions. Of course, it's not trivial. There are several mechanisms we are testing right now, and we also want to do polling with our future users. This is what we will implement soon. We have a late wait list. There are many thousand people already on the wait list, and we would like to use that wait list to ask future users, like, what do you think could be useful? What do you want? And I think that's a good feedback loop to establish something where, we can hopefully have again a bit more of a dialogue in Europe or worldwide where discussions are more fact-based.
I thought one of the things you said was quite interesting, which also touches me, because I think social media is obviously a very important part of our landscape now and how we get information. But you also mentioned how politicians were, in a sense, going back to communities physically and getting on the streets and reaching out to people. I mean, in Britain, they always knock on people's doors. I always think they do anyway. So we need to combine these social skills again of talking to people and asking what they want with maybe the tech.
I completely agree, and I think that we often tend to, I agree with most of the criticism that is leveled against social media platforms, don't get me wrong, but I think we shouldn't miss the positive aspects of it. One way of saying trust is eroding or facts are eroding is saying it's also being democratized, meaning that you actually have to fight for establishing the truth, which, by the way, we always had to. Politicians have to earn our trust. They have to be out there listening to us. They have to communicate to us. We have to see their faces. We have to even see their vulnerabilities. And one of the things that work with social media is we see them also being regular humans. And so I think actually there's also, despite all the problems with social media, there's also an element of democratization in it, because if you want to win on social media, you have to be available, you have to listen, and you have to talk to people eye to eye, because otherwise it doesn't work.
That's a very interesting point. I agree with that. And on top of that, this is what I'm also seeing. People want more human interaction, and they want live interaction. Not only human, like, oh, you're verified as a human on our platform. They want to have live debates. And this is also something we are considering, bringing this live event or live moment back. Because it's exactly as you said, people want to see the politician in action, or maybe a live debate, 2 or 3 politicians. And this is what we had like decades ago in TV. I mean, we still have it, but in these fragmented TV channels. But where a global public, or a national public or European-wide public is listening a live debate on a European level, that would be amazing. I would love to see that. So this is what we're currently considering, and I feel people in this age of AI, they want to have human interaction, live interaction back.
Good. I think that's, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for your work. I think it's absolutely brilliant. And thank you, obviously, for the work you're doing. And I hope sometime in the future, both your paths can cross each other, and you can both say, we were both right.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Then another gentleman that works in America, he seems to be wanting to block climate change. So,
Understatement. The endangerment finding yesterday and a complete total assault on all our environmental progress in the last half century. It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
full wrecking. But nothing, I mean, Trump 1.0 compares little to this, what he's done in the last year. It's extraordinary.
So do you think that, I mean, at the moment it seems for us Europeans and for those people that care about climate action, it feels very quiet at the moment in America in terms of the opposition, but do you think a moment will come where we can see America back in the game?
Well, we're in the game subnationally. I just think you have to look at it bottom up, not top down. And California's been the leader in that respect, going back to Jerry Brown's first term as governor in the 1970s, and going back to Ronald Reagan when he was governor of California.
That's true.
1967, the creation of the California Air Resources Board, and the endangerment finding, what they did yesterday, directly conflicts what Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon did a few years later in the Clean Air Act, 1970, and 67 EPA.
Yeah.
So this is a deviation the likes of which we've never experienced in the vandalization of so much progress. But states will continue to lead. But you're right, the voices are silent. I was the only guy at COP. I went down there and just, there's 900 folks from China who are seeding the future to China, manufacturing, supply chains, influence. So California is going to continue to be that stable, reliable partner. That's our mindset. And we're as loud and proud as it can get, but we're also under full assault by the administration.
No, absolutely. So well done for standing strong, and also for the other subnational governments there too.
Yeah.
But the people are going to get hurt are the Americans, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, if they fall behind in this green tech race, America's going to be like a not third world, it never would be, but it's going to be falling behind economically. Its future is at risk.
I mean, what just happened yesterday to legacy automobile manufacturers, they just signed their death warrant.
Yeah.
I mean, their inability now to compete globally, and to compete with not only where the puck's going, but where young folks already are, which is they want technology stack, they want innovation. They want next generation. And we're trying to recreate the 19th century. And I mean, he's quite literally reopening coal plants in the United States of America today. So we're doubling down on stupid, and California is continuing to try to lead. And, we're leading from strength, fourth largest economy in the world. So we have the ability to punch a little above our weight. But the American people are going to get hurt, and that's why we're here. One of the things I'm talking about here in Munich is climate, and we'll continue to make.
So another wonderful guest with us here at the Munich Security Conference. If you could say who you are and who you're representing.
Thanks. Sebastian Schienle. I'm with the Global Commons Alliance.
And you're based in Berlin, is that right?
I'm based in Munich, so I have a fairly short travel distance to come here.
That's absolutely fantastic. And also we have with us Anna Zeiter, who's the new CEO of W. Anna, briefly explain to Sebastian what W is, and then I think we need to find out from Sebastian how this might help his work and the alliance of NGOs that he works with, 25 at the moment. And yeah, so let's go now.
I already see huge synergies. So my name is Anna Zeiter. I'm the CEO of W Social. So we are building a new social media platform made in Europe, but for the world. And the idea is to build an alternative to the current or the existing social media platforms out there. We would like to bring back the good old Twitter style, but made in Europe and data hosted in Europe, because we feel that this is important, especially in times of geopolitical changes. Have the data of European users in Europe is important, protected by European laws. So, and second, we would like to embrace human interaction. Every user, if you sign up, hopefully soon, to our service, then you need to be verified as a human, because by this we want to embrace human interaction, but also we would like to have no bots on the platform, because we see, and now I come back more to the synergies I'm seeing here. When you have no bots on the website, you are less exposed to disinformation, misinformation, and manipulation. And I think especially in the sustainability space, what we need is a trusted, fact-based dialogue, because this is what we are seeing everywhere in society and in the public discourse, but especially in sustainability, that there's so much misinformation and disinformation out there. But I mean, it's all about the facts. Like, you can prove that the climate is changing. And I think on our platform, and this is what we try to do with a trust-based concept, more humans, no bots, and embracing really fact-based dialogue, I think that could serve you as well. That's my 1 minute elevator pitch here.
So Sebastian, I mean, we all know that the social media space has changed over recent years. And I think in terms of the environment, in terms of climate, I think there is a suspicion that, you know, those people that don't want change, like the fossil fuel companies, you know, are working very, very hard on disinformation and misinformation, perhaps because they can see their business model under attack. But what's your take? Do we need something better?
Absolutely. I absolutely applaud your efforts and very much look forward to it going live. That's the perfect background noise. No, absolutely. Misinformation and disinformation is a huge problem. I think we need to strengthen the cultural message. We need to really strengthen our communications around the importance both of a stable climate and of a stable planet. And at the moment, as you said, Nick, the challenges that we face, we have a huge drag through the misinformation and disinformation out there. That's creating a gigantic trust problem. And we need to go back to a more honest, open conversation that values facts. And we're strongly, our alliance is based in the science, in a strong scientific foundation. And we see science on the retreat for exactly those reasons.
I fully agree with that. And I also see, so science is under attack. And what I'm also seeing that over the last decade, society is more and more fragmented and polarized. And we see extremes here and there, and everyone lives in their tiny little filter bubble. And this is what we also want to change. We would like to give the algorithm back to the people, to the users, so that they can choose, yes, I want to stay in my boring little filter bubble, or I want to see a little bit more of society. And by this, if more people choose, yes, I want to see a little bit more what's out there, what other opinions are out there on the market, then we can try to bring people together, because that's the most important piece, that people continue talk to each other and talking about facts. They can have different opinion about the facts, but then we have a fruitful dialogue and hopefully solve problems like the climate change altogether.
So there we are, Sebastian. This is W Social. It's coming to a computer near you and a smartphone sometime towards the end of this year. I hope you can look out for it and be part of it.
Absolutely. Very much looking forward to it, and I'll be sure to join.
Geopolitics, misinformation, disinformation, manipulation, free speech. Only when you understand the big frame and the big players and what the big forces are, you understand what kind of role media is playing in a society.
Free speech is so important, and this is why we are here, because we need to understand what's going on in the world, because we want to provide a social media platform made in Europe for the world.
Det som skjer I Sørøst-Asia, det en av grunnene til at det viktig at vi har til stede. At Russland har tidlig I Ukraina-krigen raslet med atomvåpen som farlig, og ja, den diskusjonen kommer dessverre.
The soldiers of Ukraine are fighting at the front, but the civilians are living through hell right now.
Bring the truth versus the Russian disinformation to the general public is very well welcome. So
we think we need to do it with an ID, so like face scan and then the ID, but we don't want to keep the data. We want to delete it as soon as possible, but we need to have a proof, because this is the only thing that AI does not have. The AI doesn't have a face, and AI doesn't have a passport.
This was like a coup.
Yeah, that was a total coup. I mean, we were here in the Ukraine House for a purpose, because our W developers are based in Ukraine, so we have strong ties to Ukraine. And I just wanted to go here and say, thank you, Ukraine, for, providing us with amazing developers and understand a little bit more what's going on, what they have to say here. And then we met Newsom.
This is the sticker of W, so this is the logo. And you can sign up. Here is the waitlist. And we give you top priority.
See, I may regret not doing this. In 10 years, I'll be reading about it. You're like, I remember
So
that.
you can put it on your laptop. It looks super cool. Or you can keep it and then you can sell it on eBay in a couple of years for millions.
For a million. For a million.
Right on. Yes, thank you.